Hello and welcome back to my 10 favorite people. Hope you're doing well. I'm incredibly excited for today's video, not only because Bitcoin has officially entered price discovery, but also because I think this video is going to save investors from losing a lot of money over the next few weeks. Now, this is quite a special moment because for months now, we've been talking about how Bitcoin always has its large moves in Q4, and so far November is off to a great start. And how poetic is it that Bitcoin entered price discovery in November of 2020, it topped in November of 2021, it bottomed with the FTX collapse in November of 2022, it broke out of its trading range and started rallying in November of 2023, and here we are in November of 2024, and we have Bitcoin entering price discovery. Now, it's still early in November, and I'm going to be watching the close very closely because November price action has carried over into December each and every year, going all the way back to 2015. But the mistake I'm seeing so many investors make is really not their fault, and the main ones to blame are the media and what I'm seeing influencers posting. I gathered some news articles that have all been published within the past 48 hours, and let me know if you notice a pattern. This one here says 2 Bitcoin whales bought $142 million of Bitcoin after Trump's win, and this seems bullish on the surface. I saw it being shared all over the place because surely if these Bitcoin whales have $142 million to spend, they must know something and they must know what they're doing. And then I saw this one here, and this was being shared all over the place as well. BlackRock Bitcoin ETF sees biggest volume day ever with $4.1 billion traded, and the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF saw $1.1 billion in ETF inflows, another new record high. And at the surface, this would make you think that we're just getting started. Everybody is piling in, price is going to go a lot higher. But then you take a look at what usually happens when investors pile into the ETFs on a particular day, and we look at what happened just a few days ago before our last correction, what happened in June, and what happened in March. And then let's take a look at this headline here. Bitcoin open interest tops chart after hitting 75K sweet spot. Whatever sweet spot means, but again, this would make you think everything's fine. But if we take a look at Bitcoin's interest, we're now more than double what we saw at the 2021 April high and the 2021 November high. And I know open interest should go up as price increases, but a doubling in open interest when Bitcoin's price is nowhere near double does tell you that there's a ton of leverage piling into the system right now with the election certainty that we've received recently. But good news, this article comes to clear things up and save the day by saying Bitcoin actually shows no signs of overheated signals despite new highs. As a matter of fact, this article is here to tell us that Bitcoin price metrics align to project further upside for Bitcoin. And good thing this article is here to clear things up as well, saying that this Bitcoin all-time high is actually just the beginning. And as a matter of fact, Bitcoin can go parabolic, according to this article, if we get a weekly close above 71,500. And if you think about it, according to this article, Trump victory may actually pave the way for 100K Bitcoin by the end of year, but I'm not sure if that's bullish enough. So we have this article here asking the real questions. Bitcoin gained 1,900% in Trump's first term. Will Bitcoin price hit 1 million this time if it were to repeat that pattern and gain 1,900% again? And what happens with all these articles and all the influencers with their price projections, and you combine that with the fact that Bitcoin is breaking a previous all-time high, all of a sudden it makes everybody start to go all in on one scenario. The stars are aligning, the Fed is easing, Trump won the election, the price broke out. Let's all pile in here. Let's sell our safer holdings and buy altcoins. Actually, you know what? Let's sell those altcoins and buy meme coins. Actually, let's forget spot holdings altogether. This is so clearly going to go up that we should just skip right to the leverage. Let's open a 10x leverage long on Bitcoin, altcoin, and meme coins and make sure we take advantage of this upcoming super cycle. And now I'm not making this video to say price has to go down or that I'm going to start selling my spot holdings because everyone's too bullish. But what I'm trying to say here is that this market becomes incredibly one-sided whenever we see a big rally and everybody throws caution to the wind and starts taking on more risk than they can handle, and they end up capitulating on really small pullbacks because they're way out on the risk curve or they're way too leveraged to handle any type of corrections. So as I always say on this channel, we want to remember that there's different possible outcomes, and things looked incredibly bullish as we approach the March top as well. And all of these local highs, whether it was Trump speaking at the Bitcoin conference or any of these other major narratives, everybody got ahead of themselves. And I am bullish in the short term because of how good price structure looks, but I would not feel comfortable whatsoever opening new leveraged positions here or piling into very speculative projects just because Bitcoin has seen a breakout. And funny enough, this is why it was so easy to manage emotions during all of that chop and consolidation we've experienced for the past few months. Because of my safer spot holdings and my cash position, I still get to benefit from all of the upside whenever prices are going up. Yes, people that are 100% allocated will do better than me. People who call the timing properly with leverage will do significantly better. But whenever we get those corrections, whenever we get those pullbacks, whenever we get those scenarios that investors aren't currently anticipating, that cash and that peace of mind is incredibly valuable because it's not all sunshine and rainbows in this market. And speaking of not always sunshine and rainbows, we did have our FOMC meeting yesterday, and Bitcoin is still ignoring the falling global liquidity. And again, this is likely driven by the fact that we have some great narratives right now. We have these new spot ETFs that are getting a ton of inflows and giving institutions access to Bitcoin for the first time. We also just got an incredible election outcome. So those narratives can drive price in the short term, and I remain optimistic in the short term, but I have a hard time expecting Bitcoin's price to double or triple here without global liquidity backing it up. And yesterday, Powell told us that quantitative tightening will continue. They will continue reducing their balance sheet. And this is what's been putting a lot of downward pressure on global liquidity, with the Fed being the central bank of the global reserve currency. They have a huge impact on global liquidity based on what they're doing with their balance sheet and with interest rates. And this is why we're seeing quite a strong move in the dollar index today. And after yesterday's meeting, the market is now pricing in just 3 more 25 basis point rate cuts, one in December, one in March, and one in June. And then markets are expecting the Fed to keep rates elevated at 4% for the entirety of 2025, which is nearly impossible in my opinion. I don't think that the economy can handle 4% interest rates for the entirety of 2025, but that's what the market is pricing in as of right now. And this is putting upward pressure on the dollar index because the market is pricing in higher rates for longer. And if that puts upward pressure on the dollar index, we don't have the conditions needed for Bitcoin to enter an incredible mania phase like 2017 and 2021 when the dollar index devalued and rolled over aggressively. Now in 2016, we did see a rally into the end of the year and Bitcoin was able to grind higher. Maybe we're seeing that slow grind higher here again, but I want to see a big drop in the US dollar index if we're going to get some crazy mania phase where Bitcoin doubles and triples. And that's also when I would feel more comfortable with altcoin exposure as well. I've been told for months that I'm going to miss out and alt season is here. And what do you mean altcoins aren't going to go up yet? Altcoins can definitely go up in the short term. I mean, especially if Bitcoin keeps going higher, altcoins can rally, but I have a hard time seeing altcoins doing anything incredible like we saw in 2021 and 2017 without the Fed's monetary policy and the dollar index playing along as well. And now the federal government has been able to keep the economy afloat via these huge deficits. This is actually another reason why I don't think the Fed can keep rates this elevated for that long, because it's going to make the interest expense for the federal government way too high. They've been running these huge deficits as of this year, as of last year, and as of the year before that. And I think these federal deficits are going to continue to keep the economy afloat, and those deficits are going to require lower interest rates from the Federal Reserve. But if they are going to push those interest rate cuts back, and the market is going to price in higher rates, that's going to put upward pressure on the US dollar index, which is slowly getting closer and closer to our risk-off region and is now above its next major resistance level. Now let's take a look at the main drivers of the Fed's monetary policy, inflation, and the labor market. Looking at our leading indicator for inflation, trueflation, it's been going up over the past few months since the first rate cut, but still doesn't look too bad at 2.66%. So I don't expect any huge spikes from PCE or core PCE quite yet. So no major inflation concerns here. And if we look at our leading indicators for the labor market, non-farm payrolls doesn't look great. We're not seeing a lot of new jobs created. And usually once we start seeing job losses, we see that carry over into initial jobless claims, which tends to move after non-farm payrolls, but that's still well below its recession start. Similar thing for continuing jobless claims, still well below its recession start. So I'm not expecting any huge moves in the unemployment rate quite yet, but definitely something that I'm monitoring because the Fed puts a lot of emphasis on it when it comes to their monetary policy. And if we look at GDP, still positive. Again, this can change, this gets readjusted all the time, but as of right now, I don't see any major recession warnings within the next 1 to 3 months. And when it comes to traditional markets, we've been seeing incredible price action from the S&P 500. This weekly candle is absolutely insane. And a strong S&P 500 is the exact backdrop you'd want to see for Bitcoin. Bitcoin's weekly close is now only 2 days away, and a close above 71.5K would be a confirmed range breakout, and that would be further solidified with a weekly close above 74K, which it looks like we're going to get as of right now, but we'll have to see how the weekly close ends up playing out. But it's hard to be bearish on this price structure in the short term. So as we look forward, I've been getting a lot of questions about this chart here. I'm not saying Bitcoin is expensive as in I'm going to sell everything here because it's overpriced, but this is more to answer the question that I get on a daily basis about whether I think it's a good time to buy Bitcoin right now. And when you compare it to the prices we were buying Bitcoin earlier in 2024, or even in 2022 and 2023, it's hard to say that Bitcoin is currently cheap or fair value now that it's exiting a 9-month reaccumulation range that we're currently trading above. So you had so much time to buy Bitcoin between 50 and 70, which is why I considered that fair value when I made this chart in May. So I have a hard time calling 70K plus fair value as well after we had so much time to accumulate at that price range. And I plan on making an updated version of this chart for 2025 because obviously these are going to become outdated. Same thing for this chart here. The further Bitcoin goes higher, the more unlikely it becomes for us to go all the way down to the low 40,000s because the moving averages are coming up higher. So even mean reversion or 20 to 30% corrections wouldn't take us anywhere near that low. So we'll make a new version of this chart for 2025 as well. But as we look forward, it looks like government debt issuance is only going to increase over the next few years. And eventually that debt is going to get monetized and it's going to increase the money supply, which will devalue the fiat currency. And this is why we've seen debt issuance correlate with the S&P 500 as the fiat currency gets devalued. So I remain bullish on the S&P 500 in the long term, and I also remain bullish on fixed supply assets like Bitcoin in the long term as well. But anyway, any day that Bitcoin enters price discovery is a beautiful day. Let me know what you think of these articles. I mean, all of these articles were released in the past 48 hours, and I'm sure you guys are seeing all the YouTube titles and thumbnails about altcoin picks, and this is the start of life-changing whatever. So just try to keep the FOMO in check. Try to have a portfolio for you that makes sense, that accounts for different scenarios and doesn't all in rely on the most optimistic outcome. But as always, thank you so much for the support on the recent videos. We'll definitely continue monitoring what happens, especially once we get this weekly close above 74K, as long as Bitcoin can hold on between now and Sunday. Thank you so much for the support on the recent videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.